All right, now let's talk about the car setup, suspension setup. This is for high-speed layout with high traction on a 25 or maybe 3500 motor, open gearing and open speed control on a RX28 standard with double A arm. First thing you want to do is make sure you use the tire you want to use with either brand new but cut or even your used tires that are pretty even on both sides of the car. This way you can set the ride height properly. So the first thing I would do on a high-speed layout with the high traction is to run gold springs. Put your new wheels and tires on, push down on the car, and then check the ride height. When check on this side. When checking the ride height, I don't just slide the ride height gauge and push it. I actually drag the ride height gauge by tapping the gauge slowly under the chassis until I feel it drag. Right there. Right now it's showing the ride height is 1.6, which is too low. So I would check that, 1.6, then I would adjust it here, right? But before I do that, I check my droop. I don't use the droop gauge, I just go by the feel. I would lift it. I do have some, not a lot. So if you don't have droop at all, when you try to lift it and it's almost not moving, that means when you adjust the spring to lift this side up, you're gonna wanna adjust the droop too by turning this side to counterclockwise to put more droop. Because if you don't do that and you're maxed out, meaning you're not lifting this side anymore, and you know you need to lift it by 0.1, I want to go to 1.7 or 1.8, for example. Right now it's at 1.6. Right, the ride height right now is at 1.6 and I want to get up to 1.8. If you don't have droop and it's not moving up, and you turn the spring collar to raise this side up, it's not gonna go up. You're just preloading the shock, right? So what you want to do is adjust the droop screw right there. Adjust it, turn it counterclockwise, right? Not that much, but I'm not turning it, but you know, turn it counterclockwise until you get that little bit of movement, okay? Which means now you have a droop on this side. And then you can turn the collar, right? Turn it, in this case, towards clockwise. I turned it a little bit, so let's measure it. I'm tapping it with my finger, just trying to feel it. Now it's 1.7. I'm going to turn it a little bit more. Push it down. Oh, that's the 1.7. Oh, 1.7. So let me see my droop. Nope, I'm maxed out. So I'm going to turn the droop counterclockwise. Check it again. I'm not just sliding the ride height gauge, okay? I'm like tapping it in. 1.7. So now I'm gonna turn that clockwise. There. It actually stopped. It didn't even hit the step on the 1.8, but I can feel it dragging in the 1.8 area of the gauge. Let's do it again. It takes me a while to check the ride height gauge. I mean the ride height. Yep, that's 1.8. I don't wait for the gauge to stop. Okay, that's not how you use this. It's not, sometimes it doesn't really stop on the step. It just glides over it because it's 0.1. So when I feel it dragging, I would go and check, like eyeball it and see if it's actually dragging. If it's dragging in the 1.6, that means it's 1.6. Dragging 1.8, that means 1.8. You know what I mean? I mean 1.8. And right now it's at 1.8. So the front is good on this side. Then I'll do the other side as well, right? The same thing. Okay? I'm not gonna adjust the whole car, but just showing you how I would adjust it. And then for the rear, so after the front, this side, that side, and then I'll do this and then this side, right? I would slide the ride height gauge right under that pivot ball where the side link goes. And this is the reason why you want to use the Reflex Racing screws, because if you're running the PN screws, it's gonna stick out a little bit. It won't be flush with the chassis, right? And if it's sticking out, it's gonna get caught. So if you want to run lower chassis, want to lower your car more, the whole car, not just the screw, you want to use the Reflex Racing screw. The PN sticks out, you think you're at 1.5, but really the car is like 1.8. It's lifted, well, not 1.8, 1.7. It's lifted that much because the screw is sticking out. So you want to use the Reflex Racing screw. Screws that came with the kit. Slowly tap that, there, the ride height gauge. I can feel the resistance at 1.6, so I don't even need to do anything in the back. That's where I want it. You see how I'm not just sliding the ride height gauge, I'm slowly tapping it in. Yep, I feel it right there, the resistance. So that's where I want the ride height. So wheels first, then check the ride height on this, the front, and then the back. I like mine set up to where the front is higher than the back, because like I said, this is for a high traction, high speed layout. If the layout is slow, or if the layout doesn't have that much bite, I usually have the car leveled, meaning 1.8, 1.8, or whatever, 2.0, 2.0 level, and probably going to run a softer suspension, which is the silver spring that I have right now. So yeah, so first, make sure the tires are on, pretty even, even wear or new, and cut. Then ride height check in the front, and then the rear. If it's not even and you want to raise it up, it depends on how much you want to raise it up. Sometimes you can just turn this to raise the back up a little bit, right? And then you adjust the droop by loosening this up. But if it's a lot, meaning this side is 1.3 and you want to get up to 1.8, you don't want to do that here. Maybe 0.1, you can do that here, but 0.2, it all depends. If it's already, bowed in, meaning the back is drooping down too much, then you don't want to add more droop by putting preload on that back top spring, right? You don't want to do that. What you want to do is adjust the ride height from the motor mount, these 4 screws, and using this gauge, right? You put it under, and then you adjust it with the 4 screws for the Gen 1 RX28. For the Gen 2, I believe you use the shim to adjust the ride height. Also, I use black or silver springs for, so I usually use for high traction silver springs. Unless I don't have silver anymore, then I use black. They feel very close. For mod with a lot of traction tire setup, I can feel with the black spring, the rear end would dip in the corner. And that's noticeable, especially with the disc damper plate system on an MR03 or other kit chassis, to where the back end would dip in while taking a high-speed corner. You know, when you're taking like a sweeper, the back end would dip, and I don't like that feel. With the RX28, that's very rare to have that feel. But I do notice that rarely in mod with the black springs on the side. For this car, I'm running the silver springs 3500. It's not soft and it's not too stiff. It's just right. For the top shock, I'm still running the pink spring with a little bit of droop, 0.5 to 1 millimeter droop, but usually under 1. And then the Kyosho blue grease, the 30,000. For the front, top shock, the side damper. Also, you want to check the side springs. Although they're all silver, they're not all the same. See, when you buy the silver spring, the side springs, they all look like this. But somehow my RX28 SE came with this spring. I just painted it white to let me know that that's not what I want to use. But I ordered like 3 springs. And for some reason, they're all consistent like this. But this one was in my RX28, and I couldn't figure out what was happening with my mod car, the SE, and I couldn't figure out what was happening with the car until I put the black springs back on, which is the same length as this silver spring in my mod. Then all of a sudden the car was working perfectly fine. It's like, oh man, the black spring is way better than the silver, right? Then I looked at my other car, wait a minute, I'm running silver on the other 2 cars and it's working perfectly fine. So then I removed the springs in one of my car, like on this car. And then I compared it to the silver spring I had with my SE. Then I noticed, oh dude, this one is, the SE is stiffer and it's short. This one feels a lot softer and it's more linear compared to this one. This one is just too stiff. Maybe I got the one-offs, but these 2 springs came in my RX28 SE. So check that. It should be the same height as the black springs. If you have a spring, if you have the silver spring, measure them together, make sure that they're the same height. Yeah, that's what I noticed, and it took me a while to figure out what was happening with the car, why it's not acting the same as the other cars, even with the same setup. I thought silver is silver, you know, but it's not. One of them is stiffer than the other. You don't need that stiff spring. It's too hard. You want to use this silver spring, but taller. Yeah. Also, when you route your battery cable, make sure it's not hitting the top shock. And here, the side links, make sure it's not hitting it. The travel on one side is limited because the cable, the battery wires are hitting the side link. So you want to pay attention to that. Sometimes even the hard body, when you put the hard body in, it pushes down the battery wire. And now your travel is limited. This side can go 5 millimeter, or maybe not 5, but it goes like 3 mil, and this one is like 0.5 mil. You know what I mean? So you wanna keep an eye out on that. For the caster, for the Gen 1 caster, I suggest for high traction, again, this is high traction, fast layout, run 0.2 in the back. The 0.4 or 0.5, I don't think they sell the 0.5 anymore. I checked out the website. I think they only have the 0.3. So I guess the 0.3 is fine. But mine, with the RX28 SE, it came with the 0.5 to go back here in the caster. And I only have one, and I can't find that in the site anymore. So just use 0.2 or 0.3. It's fine. And this again is only for just shimming to put a little bit of play. Still a lot of play, but like I said in my other video, it doesn't matter. The car is good even with that much play. So yeah, that's how I set up my suspension. It's pretty basic. Very important is the ride height for me. And again, this car will have toe out, just like all of my RX28s. Yeah, and I think that's it for the suspension setup.